Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Welcome to this segment of Coach Gurbani's a-sabad-a-day, the recitation, Rag Sorat Bani Bhagat Ravidas Ji Ki, composition of the Bhagat Ravidas Ji. The recitation, the first verse, Jo hum bandhe moh bhas, हम प्रेम बंधन तुम बांधे, अपने छूटन को जतन करो, हम छूटे तुम आराधे. Now Bhagat Ji here is addressing the beloved, intimate conversation. He says, just as you have tied me down, Jo hum bandhe, with the news of attachments, mohafas, I have secured you by the bonds of love. I have tied you down as well. Hum prem bandhan tum bandhe. So you try, if you can, to free yourself from my love. Apne chutan ko jatan karo. I have found my liberation by adoring you. Hum chute tum aradhe. So you see, this is a paradoxical but very intimate conversation between lovers, the beloved and the devotee. Mohobhas, what has been given to us, is this whole conglomeration of attachments. Mohobhas is the expression used to point to our emotional fixations, to the ego, essentially. Cravings, compulsive patterns, dependencies. All of this is the news of attachment. So what Ravidas is saying here is that you've given us all of this, and I can't untangle myself by wrestling with my own ego. Because the harder one tries to free oneself, the tighter the noose becomes. So the only way out, the only freedom, is the bond of love, prema bandhan, which is a reorienting of one's attention towards what is true, what is loving, what is transcendent, a higher ideal, a turning away, a shift in perspective. So, Madhave, जानत हो जैसी तैसी, अब कहाँ करोगे ऐसी, रहाओ. This is a moment of radical honesty and vulnerability, addressing the beloved. Oh Madhave, you know me exactly as I truly am. Janat ho jaisi taisi. So now what performance is there left for me to perform? You already know me inside and out. So you see me completely in my strengths, in my flaws, in my shadows, in my longings. What more is there left to explain, pretend, or perform? So what Ravidas is hinting to us is saying, look, your inner condition is not hidden. It's already known. So why pretend? Why fool yourself? Be authentic. मीन पकड़ फांकयो अर काटयो, रांद कियो बहुबानी, खंड खंड कर भोजन कीनो, तौ न बिसर्यो पानी. Uses the metaphor of a fish. Fish is caught and cleaned, he says. Meen pakar pankyo, then cut, ar katyo, and then cooked in many ways. Rand kiyo bahubani, the process of cooking a fish. Even when the fish is eaten piece by piece, khand khand kar bhojan kino, water is not forgotten. Tau na bisreo pani. Here Kabirji is giving us the example of a fish that is essentially water, and it lives in water, and it is water. Its composition is water. So he's pointing to the inseparable identity and deep-rooted orientation of the human psyche, of the human being. Gurbani calls it Nam consciousness. It is intrinsic to us. So the example of being cut up into pieces and cooked is essentially saying that, our life may cut us up into pieces through our experiences, through our roles, through our ego wounds, our ambitions, our distractions. That's fragmentation. Our life may be fragmented. We may be tossed about into countless flavors. Randikyo Bahubani, relationships, one flavor of life, career, another, addictions, identities. All of these are flavors, and we are tossed about. Yet, Ravidas Bhagat is pointing out something in us remains rooted in our origin. The beloved, the self within, the sustainer. What he's saying is that we have in our apparatus a built-in homing signal. It is always pointing toward the beloved. And then again, to emphasize this point, Apan bape nahi kisi ko, bavan ko hari raja, moh pattal sab jagat beapyo, pagat nahi santapa. We do not own anyone as property. Apana bape nahi kisi ko, or nobody owns us. The only owner is the Har Self, who is the ruler over all of our hearts. Bhavana ko har raja. But moh pattal sab jagat beapyo, the veil of attachment enshrouds the whole world. No one is immune from it. But the devotee, bhagat nahi santapa, knows no suffering because he knows this. There is an inner knowing. So, when we look at our world, human relationships, status, possessions, they're all conditional. They're shifting. They're never absolute. You can't expect things to remain the same all the time. The bonds of family, friendships, are all very fragile. So therefore, Kabir Bhagat Ravidas is warning us that we cannot find anchor in any of these things, ultimate anchor. So therefore, to build your identity around them or on them is an error of attachment. So recognize that the only unchanging center is the beloved. In the previous verse, he's emphasizing the same thing. You don't own anyone as property, but you're owned by the Har. So therefore, orient yourself towards that center, to where you truly and innately belong, like the fish belongs to water. You are made of that substance, just as the fish is water. You are essentially that substance called the Har. Kahe Ravidas Bhagat ek badi, ab यहाँ का स्यो कहिए, जा कारण तुम आराधे, so dukh aju sahiye. This is a profoundly mystical statement. Bhagat Ravidas says, devotion now has become a binding chain. Imagine that. He says, now to whom should this be told? Ab ehka syo kahiye. The very pain for which I remembered and adored you, that suffering still remains. So in a sense, what he is concluding is that the only real bondage worth having is that sweet voluntary chain that ties us to the beloved. And that experience surpasses words. There is no one left to tell or describe it to. Even that pain and suffering that lingers has been transformed. In that act of loving remembrance, suffering becomes sanctified. It becomes a bridge to the beloved, not a wall, not an obstruction. This is the paradox. Waheguru Ji ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji ki Fateh.